Kevin O'Brien, thanks a million for coming in to see us.
No problem.
I was going to introduce you as Kevin O'Brien from the Irish men's cricket team, but you're a lot more than that now. Stints in Canada, Afghanistan and then Nepal coming up this year, so exciting times for you getting to travel the world, play cricket.
Yeah, it's been a busy 2018, I suppose, for me with the Irish team first and foremost. But as you said, those three tournaments, very lucky to get involved and be picked up. The Canada tournament in July was a good experience to be able to play with, the likes of Luke Ronke, Shahid Afridi, Sohail Tanvir, who are very big T20 players around the world, and to be able to play against like Chris Gale, Andre Russell, it was a great learning curve. In a country that I've played cricket once or twice, but that was 2010, maybe a long time ago. So yeah, and the Afghan League was another eye opener. Over in Dubai, it was again, some of the world's best players were there. Rashid Khan, all the big Afghanistan players were there, and obviously Sterlo was on my team as well, so it was good to have a little bit of home comfort as well. And then heading off to Nepal on the 4th of December, which is another exciting chapter. And I've never played there before, and I've heard the following for cricket is as passionate as India, so the crowds promise to be very big.
Yeah, I mean, for kind of people who are outside cricket who don't really know how it works, how do you get picked up by these leagues? Because Ireland's T20 results haven't been the best over the last couple of years, maybe not our strongest format, but yet here you are going away to different franchise leagues around the world and earning big contracts there. So how does it kind of work? Yeah,
so I'm first and foremost contracted with Cricket Ireland, so I can only really play in these tournaments if there's no Irish games happening at the same time. So I've been fortunate enough over the last probably 6 or 7 years to gain certain contracts around the world when there's been gaps in the Irish schedule. So you just put your name in the hat. You express your interest. Usually, most of these tournaments are on a draft basis, so you put yourself in at a certain category of price or a certain round number that you want to get picked up in. And if you're fortunate enough to go ahead of that round or get picked up for more than your base contract, well and good. But if you miss out on your round or your price category, you can only go as a replacement player. So the two tournaments, the Afghan League and the Canadian League, I was signed as a replacement player. So I've got to give my brother Niall, who's my agent, got to give him a high five. He's once the draft finished, he was on the case of the team owners and the team captains, kind of saying if you need a replacement, Kev's available for the whole tournament and whatnot. So it's just we'll probably look at a draw. You've got to be in the minds of the team owners and the team captains when the draft takes place. And then obviously hopeful that your previous performances over the last couple of years, whether it be for Ireland or in another global tournament like a franchise league, that the owners or team captains were there and they take notice.
Yeah, when you're going to the table to try to put yourself forward, does Bangalore 2011 still hold a lot of weight in that regard? I mean, it's 7 years ago now, but does it still owners and franchises look at that, and Kev has obviously got a reputation to be able to do that?
Yeah, I'd imagine so. I think it probably wouldn't be as fresh in their memory, but it certainly would identify the skill set that I have. But I'd like to think that innings since then, certainly for Trinidad in the Caribbean League over the 2 seasons, my stint with Gloucester and stints with Surrey and Somerset would have shown something as well. So, I think most of the cricketing world know what I can do with a cricket bat, and obviously with the ball in the field. My skill set's been pretty consistent over the last 7 or 8 years. So I suppose that the innings in 2011 would kind of refresh some memories for owners and captains. But I think having played in a lot of the tournaments, well, a few of the tournaments around the world, a lot of the captains are similar players playing in all these tournaments. So it's just all about building friendships, and if you've played under one captain in one tournament and he's involved in another, you just try and drop him a quick message and say, listen, I'm in at this price, consider me when my name comes up. So fortunately I've been lucky to get a couple of contracts overseas.
Yeah, you mentioned Niall there, who's since retired from international cricket. He's now your agent. How much have things changed, I suppose, from now even to when you first kind of were going over to England on the back of 2011? How have things changed? Because presumably then it was kind of you kind of negotiating it all yourself, and now Niall's there for you.
Yeah, well, actually Niall negotiated my first contract in 2011 with Gloucestershire when John Bracewell was coach, and then since then, probably until 2016 maybe, and my agent was a guy called Rich Hudson who worked for Essentially over in London. So So since then, so from about 2016 onwards, Niall kind of worked with essentially part-time, and then Rich had to step away to pursue a new job with the PCA in England, and essentially we were now called CSM Group. They offered Niall a kind of more advanced part-time role, and Niall took over myself and Paul Sterling as well as other players around the world. So I suppose it's good having your brother fighting your battle for you. It's changed a lot since 2011 when Niall negotiated the first deal in Gloucester. But hopefully he can negotiate a few more deals in the coming years.
Sure. Do you have to be, obviously you've played in a couple of tournaments, as you said, but when you're going over to these tournaments, you're playing against the world's best players for, they're being paid a lot of money. Do you have to be confident in yourself? I mean, not only your cricketing abilities, but not to kind of undersell yourself?
Yeah, I think, probably over the last couple of years, I've probably gone in at slightly lesser category than I would have maybe in 2013-14. The first couple of years I went in at a fairly low value just to get involved in the system and onto the circuit, and then probably you kind of push your price up as the more successful you are. And it's probably now because I'm not really in the limelight as much as someone like Sterlo, for example. I kind of put myself in a slightly lesser value, just in the hope that someone will pick you up and see you as a kind of bargain buy. But yeah, it's a great environment to have. I'm very lucky that Cricket Ireland can afford me the time to go, and I've been very fortunate that a lot of the tournaments have taken place when there hasn't been any Irish games. So I've been fortunate enough to get over and experience them. Yeah,
and you're heading off to Nepal now for 3 weeks. We were talking before we came on air, huge crowds over there. It's a real strong emerging cricket nation.
Yeah, I think cricket is as passionate there as it is in India, for example. Of course, the population wouldn't be as big, but I was speaking to someone probably a couple of years ago, and they were covering a game in USA v Nepal in Kathmandu, and there was probably 25,000 at the match. So I've never played in front of 25,000 apart from the odd World Cup match. Certainly when I play for Railway down in Park Avenue, there's nowhere near that number. So for me, it's just the experience of going over and experiencing those crowds, and that environment and the pressure that you're going to be under as being one of the one of the 3 overseas players in the team. So there's 6 teams involved, so there's only 18 overseas players. So I'm very fortunate enough that I'm one of them. And obviously playing for the biggest team in Kathmandu. It will have its own pressures, and but I enjoy that kind of environment, and hopefully I can go over and be successful.
Yeah, that was my next question. Do you put yourself under pressure when you're going over to these tournaments? Because obviously, there's a next tournament coming around the tracks, and a good performance there will put you in the shop window for that tournament, whereas vice versa, poor performances might move you out of the shop window for the next tournament. How do you kind of deal with that pressure?
Yeah, I think there's kind of 2 or 3 different types of pressures. That one there is one. I think the thing with that is if you're constantly thinking of, if I do well here and I might get this, that's all well and good, but then you might put a bit of negative pressure on yourself. So I try not to do that. Obviously it's easier said than done. You're thinking if you get a couple of scores here, who's watching, the games might be on TV in India, and then all of a sudden might open a few other doors. There's obviously the pressure you put on yourself is your own personal pride in your performances, and then also the team owners are paying you X amount of money, so there's obviously that pressure as well to perform for them and for the crowd at the games. So they're all different types of pressures, but equally it's a good pressure to have to be as a professional cricketer. It's certainly if I didn't have these opportunities, it would be a pretty dull and dreary December here. And traipsing to the gym at 7 in the morning in pitch darkness.
Sure.
So
You mentioned Niall there. Obviously, he has retired. It'd be strange for you to walk into an Ireland dressing room now in 2019 and for him not to be there.
Yeah, it's going to be really strange. Obviously Niall made his debut in 2002. He was there when he was in the team when I played in 2006. So we played a lot with each other. It's always good having a brother there in the team that you can kind of bounce off and feed off. So it will be very strange. I think not just for me, but for all the guys who have played with Niall over the years. And, the dressing room will certainly be quieter, that's for sure. But I know, and he'll be probably in the commentary box, or he'll be watching the games back home, and he'll be rooting for us as much as he was when he was playing. So we'll miss him in the team from his performances point of view as well. But obviously his character within the team, he was a driving force. His standards were hugely high. He never let his standards slip. And he certainly asked that of his teammates to not let them slip either. So yeah, be a big shoes to fill for whoever takes the position. But we'll try our best to continue on, and hopefully we can move on a little bit quicker than we did, let's say, when Alex Cusack and Trent retired in 2000, kind of end of 2013-14. So they were big shoes to fill, and it probably took us a year or two to fill them.
Yeah, that was my next kind of question. Obviously, Niall's retirement coupled with Joyce's two huge losses in the team. Is it fair to say that the team is kind of going through a transitionary phase now heading into 2019? Because as you said, they're two very experienced campaigners, two guys who have performed consistently with the bat in all formats for Ireland over the last few years. Yeah,
two huge shoes to fill. Two unbelievably class players. Probably arguably two of the best that we've produced. Batters anyway, for certain. So it is a bit of a transition phase, and I suppose we need to kind of make that transition phase as quickly as possible. I think the T20 format is potentially a good area to look at experimenting a little bit. Whether Graham and Gary see that as well. Obviously with World Cup qualification now a year away for the next T20, which is crucial for us to be involved in. But probably ultimately the 2023 World Cup is also a big tournament. It's 4 years away now, but the qualification process starts, I think, in a year and a half. So we need to be ready to go when that tournament starts, and we need to have our best kind of 15 or 20 players who are playing consistently and who are confident and firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, if you talk about the golden generation of 2007, 2011, there's only 3 of the 2007 World Cup squad still playing: yourself, Will Porterfield and Boyd Rankin. So things have moved on. As you're talking about there, it's now important to kind of fill those shoes and move on, bring new players through in all formats of the game.
Yeah, you're making me sound old there since I've been in the team now, since 2007, 11 or 12 years. So, yeah, but I suppose that's just a natural transition for our teams. But, certainly looking back on those teams, what we had in those teams in 07, 11 and 15, we have here at the moment as well, the fighting character. We've got some match winners in our team, and we just need to be more consistent, myself included for sure, in all formats, bowling, batting, fielding. So that's the biggest thing in cricket. If you can find consistency at the right times, you can go into tournaments full of confidence, knowing that you've got players who can win games, in a flash. We certainly have 2 or 3 with the bat, and we've got 2 or 3 with the ball. We just need to find more of them.
Sure. Looking back on 2018, I suppose first from a team point of view, how do you kind of reflect on it?
Yeah, well, ultimately very disappointing in my opinion. The biggest thing for me was the World Cup qualifiers, and I said it in January when, before we headed off, I said that's the biggest 3 weeks for Irish cricket. We played some very good cricket at that tournament, but ultimately when crunch time came, we couldn't handle the pressure, or we didn't handle the pressure as well as we could and should have. We lost games where we should have won. We should have beaten West Indies, and chasing 215 against Zimbabwe, 9 times out of 10 we'll chase that 4 or 5 down. If we had done that, we would have been going into the Afghanistan game top of the table and qualified for another global tournament. But it wasn't to be. We learned our lessons, and that's one thing that is great about this team is when we have setbacks, we're not slow in putting them right. So that's an important characteristic to have going forward. And of course, the Test match was a hugely positive thing, although the result, wasn't what we wanted. But I think we proved ourselves that we belong at Test cricket at that level, and we played very well. And the week, with the crowd support, the atmosphere, and everything with the past players on the Sunday afternoon, was pretty cool and great to be involved in. And I think T20 probably was an area where we realised that where we need to improve. As I mentioned, like the power within the team, the power hitters, and that's an area. If you look at teams around the world, they've got 3 or 4 players who can hit sixes, consistently, and at the moment we don't have that. So hopefully, the players are working on that in training, and I know they are. But hopefully we can go into the Oman trip now in end of January, February time with a lot of confidence for T20.
Yeah, personal point of view though, special week in Malahide, that Test match for everyone, but for you in particular, becoming Ireland's first Test centurion, that must have been an incredibly special day.
Yeah, I was very proud. I think what makes it even better was having mum and dad there as well, and my wife Ruth Ann. But ultimately the position we were in, we were kind of again backs against the walls. It's similar enough to 2011. When we were looking like we were could lose by an innings. But yeah, it was great just to be able to stand up against the Pakistan bowlers, and myself and Tomo, and myself then and Tyrone, dug in, and he got us up to 160 odd ahead, and certainly come Monday afternoon when they were 50 for 3, I think it was. It gave us a outside chance of winning, but ultimately, we just let it slip, and they got over the line in the end. But as you said, an immensely proud week for me personally, of course, and the team and family as well. So yeah, it's something that can't be taken away, and hopefully now when Cricket Ireland get that honours board, I'll be there to unveil it as the first century.
Yeah. Presumably you've watched that innings back.
Yeah, I watched little bits of it.
Yeah.
I watched it probably last week, just lying in bed, just trying to drift off, and you just Google Ireland v Pakistan, and up it comes. But yeah, I haven't watched much of it. It's something that I'll probably save for when I retire. Is if I can get the full match highlights or full match of the England game and also the Pakistan game, I'll sit back and put on the DVD and have a.
Do you remember much of it? Just going back over it, obviously it was a long enough innings, with it being a test innings, so do you kind of remember bits of it being wrecked at the end, or different things like that?
I remember pretty much all of it. I could probably explain my first scoring shot, I could explain this and that, how I got to 50, and the nerves I felt in the 90s and all 99 and stuff, and I remember towards the end of the day I was absolutely shattered. I was at the non-strikers end, I kept kneeling down and just closing my eyes just to kind of try and get some energy back, and because I've never batted for over 5 hours before, and mentally more so than physically, I was just absolutely gone. And probably that's ultimately, I think that's what led to the next day getting out first ball. Obviously phone went off. When I got back to the hotel, phone was going mad, Twitter and WhatsApps and phone calls and text messages and stuff. And I just couldn't let Sunday go on Monday morning. As much as I tried, I was probably still in Sunday afternoon in my mind and mentally, and ultimately a bass ball's a terrible ball first up, and if that was Sunday afternoon, I probably would have left it or hit it for 4. And, ultimately nick it in the keeper, and I'm just, as I nicked it, I was in my head going, "You absolute plonker." And I just had to slowly trudge off, and I was like, I don't think mum and dad were even in the ground when I got out, so disappointed that they didn't see me get out, but also relieved that Dad didn't see me play the shot. Yeah,
2 completely different situations, circumstances, achievements, games, but what was sweeter, if you can say, 2011 going to your century against England in Bangalore, or Pakistan?
They're 2 completely different innings, but I mean, probably obviously feel the same. I think probably still the England game because we won it. But also a test 100 is special. Not many people get them. And to be the first for Ireland is in our maiden test match is pretty special as well. So if there is one, it's very, very, it's a small margin. But probably just the Bangalore game and where it happened and who it was against, and we won the game, probably just overshadows it ever so slightly.
Yeah. If we sat here in 12 months' time and asked the same question, potentially a Lord's century might top it all. Obviously, you have plenty more opportunities this year to get a Test century for Ireland. That's the real positive, isn't it? That there's huge opportunities now, particularly in Test cricket, coming up over the next 12 months.
Yeah, definitely. We've got a huge Test against Afghanistan in March. So we've obviously played them a lot in 50 over cricket and T20 cricket over the last 5 or 6 years, and the odd 4-day game, and the games are always closely competitive. So it's going to be difficult over in their conditions over in India. So. But we've just got to go over there with confidence, and knowing that we've beat them before in 4-day cricket, we've beat them before in T20s and 50 overs. So, we know their strengths, we know their weaknesses, but they know ours as well. So it's going to be a very close tour. And as you said, we got the big test for me. Is Lords. It's what you dream of as a kid playing in Lords, and we've been fortunate enough to play a couple of T20s there, and obviously the 50 over ODI in 2017. So, but I think the Test match will be much bigger than that. You've got a week of, the ground's going to be sold out for 4 days in a row, that's for sure. And it's going to be a great occasion. Yeah,
before that, not to kind of end on a negative, but you did mention the World Cup, and Ireland won't be there, partly down to the ICC's decision to reduce that to 10 teams. It's obviously been well talked about, well documented, hugely disappointing. What will that kind of feel like watching it when that tournament kind of develops? Because as you say, Ireland have been at pretty much every global tournament since 2007.
Yeah, if I watch it, it's going to be difficult. I try not to watch too much cricket, but I'm sure I will watch a few games, but I'll try not to watch. But yeah, no, it will be difficult knowing that, we've been there the last 3 World Cups, I think 5 or 6 T20s in a row, so yeah, it's going to be very difficult to watch, and looking at teams and thinking that, if that was us, could we do better, would we do better, it's going to be frustrating to watch as well. So, but also we weren't good enough to qualify. It's simple facts of it. We knew what we had to do going to Zimbabwe. We had to finish in the top 2, and I think we finished 5th in the end. So we were probably a long way off qualification. Yeah.
Before we finish up, you're obviously reaching that stage in your career, not retiring you just yet, but in terms of you are looking ahead to what's to come. I know you spoke about during the summer that you're interested in umpiring, but you've also set up your own coaching kind of company. How's that kind of been going for you? And that's obviously an area that you're looking to get into?
Yeah, well, I think having been involved in the sport for 15 years or longer, I think it's kind of an easy transition to make. An easy decision to make is to stay in the game, and I think Irish cricket's been good to me over the last 20 years or so. So I want to give back to a sport that I've loved playing. So I've started probably the last 2 or 3 years. I've started getting involved with some of the smaller clubs around Ireland. Mostly recently with Monaghan Cricket Club. So I've formed a partnership with them to go up and give them 10 sessions, 4 or 5 pre-season, and then 4 or 5 currently before Christmas, and then 4 or 5 post-Christmas going into the season. So I think I've done a bit of work with Galway as well, and I've done a bit of work with Middleton down in Cork this pre-season 2018. So it's an area where I think the smaller clubs, for example, they don't have access to high quality coaching. They don't have access to high quality facilities. So at the moment, so it's an area that I'm looking to explore and try and give back to these clubs that are popping up everywhere. I think every year there seems to be a new club popping up in Ireland. It's an area that I feel that I can help, and if I can get involved with 1 club or 2 clubs and help them along, it's going to be very very beneficial for them, but also for me going forward.
Yeah.
You mentioned umpiring as well. I completed my level 1 course on the weekend, and this weekend coming now I've got my level 2. So come Sunday I can get out and umpire officially. Okay. So that's a goal of mine this year, is to umpire my first game. It depends what level that will be. The branch will decide that to see how good I am. So, but I think it's a viable post-cricket transition. Not many ex-players are considering umpiring in Ireland. When Mary Waldron's done very well from the women's side, and I think Albert van der Merwe has completed his level 2 as well. So it's an area that potentially could grow and grow as the game gets more popular here, and as it gets more professional on the pitch. You're going to need professional umpires umpiring them, because ultimately you're going to be dealing with their careers. If you give someone a bad decision, he could lose his contract, etc., etc. So ultimately down the line, I'm not going to say it's in the next 2 or 3 years, but 5, 6 years down the line, you could have a panel of 5 or 6 professional umpires in Ireland, and if I'm one of them, if that's the area I want to go, I'll give it my best chance, and ultimately if I do pursue it, I want to umpire at the top. I'm not doing it to umpire Leinster League, which is no disrespect. If I want to do something, I want to do it at the highest level I can, and that's Test cricket.
Sure, and presumably you still want to prolong your playing career for as long as you can. Obviously, with all the Cricket Ireland added fixtures, and now just in general the T20 contracts or franchises around the world, that you'd like to keep going for that for a few more years. Yeah,
for sure. As long as I'm enjoying playing and I'm enjoying the competition, and I'll keep playing. It's more difficult now getting up at 7 in the morning to go to the gym in the middle of November. But you got to get. I get there and I'll put my kind of game face on, and I've got things in my head that I want to achieve over the next couple of seasons, and that's kind of driving me on at the moment. So yeah, we just got to keep the head down and try and stay as fit as I can, and play as much as I can, and contribute to wins for Ireland. And if I'm lucky enough to play for another 3 months, if I'm lucky enough to play for another 3 or 4 years, it's going to be a special time.
Brilliant. Kev, thanks a million for coming in. Best of luck in Nepal.
Cheers. Thanks,
Mil. Cheers.
Thanks, man.